Hey Sandy, welcome back to the Grammar Unplugged. How's your week been? Any interesting linguistic adventures?
Michael, it's been a week. And actually, yes, I had a bit of a moment at the coffee shop. I ordered 2 coffees, right? And the barista gave me this look, like I'd just invented a new language. It got me thinking about one of those grammar topics that always trips people up: countable versus uncountable nouns.
Oh, that's a classic. It's like when someone says, I need an advice, and you're just like, how many advices do you need? It's so fundamental, but it can be surprisingly tricky, even for native speakers sometimes, depending on the context. And for learners, it's a huge hurdle.
Exactly. So for everyone out there listening, let's dive into it today. We're talking about countable and uncountable nouns. Michael, kick us off. What exactly are we dealing with here?
All right, let's break it down. In a nutshell, countable nouns are things we can count, right? Think 1 apple, 2 apples, 3 apples. They have both a singular and a plural form. You can put a number in front of them or use a oras form, like a chair, 2 chairs, many chairs, a few chairs.
So like a book, 2 books, a student, many students. That makes perfect sense. It's things you can actually visualize in individual units. I have 1 dog, you have 2 cats. Easy.
Spot on. Now the flip side, and where things get a little more nuanced, are uncountable nouns. These are things we cannot count individually. They usually don't have a plural form, and we generally treat them as singular. Think water, information, advice, furniture. You can't say 2 waters or 3 informations in the same way you'd say 2 apples.
Right, so water is a classic. You wouldn't ask for a water unless you're perhaps in a restaurant asking for a bottle of water or glass of water, which is a whole other layer of complexity, isn't it? But generally, it's just water.
Or money. You don't say 2 monies, do you?
Precisely. Money is a fantastic example. We count units of money, dollars, euros, pounds, but money itself is uncountable. You use much money, not many money. Same with advice. You can't have an advice. You'd say some advice or a piece of advice. That piece of is often our way of making uncountable things quantifiable. Okay, that's a great tip. So we use much and a little with uncountable nouns, like I don't have much time, or could I have a little sugar? Whereas with countable nouns, we'd use many and a few. I have many friends, could I have a few minutes?
Exactly. That's a key differentiator. And also, uncountable nouns almost always take a singular verb. So, the information is helpful, not the information are helpful. Or, my hair is getting long, not my hair are getting long, even if you have a lot of individual hairs.
Oh, hair is another one of those tricky ones. I always wonder about that. If I'm talking about one single strand, can I say a hair?
You absolutely can. And this is where it gets really interesting, because some nouns can actually be both countable and uncountable depending on the context. Hair is a prime example. If you're talking about the general mass on your head, it's uncountable. She has beautiful hair. But if you find one in your soup, it's there's a hair in my soup. So a hair refers to a single strand.
That makes so much sense. It's all about whether you're thinking of it as a whole, undifferentiated mass or as individual units. So my 2 coffees at the start of the podcast, that's me treating coffee as a countable unit, meaning 2 cups of coffee, right?
Precisely. When you're ordering, you're implicitly asking for 2 servings of coffee. But if you're talking about the substance itself, you'd say, I love coffee, or do you want some coffee? You're not counting the individual beans or liquid molecules.
Okay, so coffee is a great example of a noun that can swing both ways. What are some other common categories of uncountable nouns that people should be aware of?
Great question. We often see liquids falling into the uncountable category: water, milk, juice, oil, wine. Then there are materials: wood, glass, paper, gold, silver, food items that are often seen in bulk or as a general substance: bread, rice, sugar, flour, butter, meat, cheese. Abstract ideas are almost always uncountable. Information, advice, knowledge, happiness, love, beauty, peace, progress.
Wow, that's a comprehensive list. Furniture is another good one. I know people sometimes say furnitures, and that's just not a thing, is it?
No, it's not. Furniture is always singular and uncountable. You'd say a piece of furniture or some furniture. Same with luggage or baggage. You have some luggage, not 2 luggages. It's collective, like a category, rather than individual items.
That's super helpful, so if I'm ever unsure and it feels like a collective or a substance or an abstract concept, chances are it's uncountable. and I should use much or a little and a singular verb.
That's a really good heuristic. And then if you do want to quantify an uncountable noun, you use those partitive phrases we mentioned. A glass of water, a slice of bread, a piece of advice, an item of furniture, a bar of soap. Those phrases make it feel countable.
So instead of I need 2 breads, which sounds a bit off, I'd say I need 2 loaves of bread or 2 slices of bread, depending on what I'm asking for. It really clarifies the quantity.
Exactly. It brings precision to your communication. And it's not just about correctness, it's about being understood clearly. Imagine asking for 3 waters in a restaurant and getting 3 full water bottles instead of 3 glasses you expected.
That's a very real-world scenario. Okay, what about time? That's another one that always makes me pause. Is time countable or uncountable?
Time is another fantastic dual-nature noun. Generally, time as a concept, or the progression of moments, is uncountable. I don't have much time, time flies. But when we talk about specific instances or occurrences, it becomes countable. Like I've been to London 3 times, or there was a time when I believed that. Here, times refers to specific occasions.
That's so fascinating how the context completely shifts whether you're counting it or not. So how much time do we have versus how many times have you done that? It really highlights the importance of listening for the nuance.
It absolutely does. And experience is another one. As a general concept, it's uncountable. He has a lot of experience in marketing, but specific events or incidents are countable. I had a terrible experience at that restaurant, or she's had many challenging experiences in her career.
This is great. I think the key takeaway for me is that it's not always black and white, but there are strong patterns. Liquids, materials, abstract concepts generally uncountable. Individual distinct items generally countable. And if it's tricky, think about how you'd put it in a container or measure it. If you need a piece of or a glass of, it's probably uncountable.
That's a perfect summary, Sandy. And really, the best way to get a feel for this is through exposure and practice. Reading, listening, and just paying attention to how native speakers use these words will naturally build your intuition.
Definitely. I mean, nobody expects you to get it perfect overnight. Language learning is a journey, right? But understanding these categories and knowing why something is countable or uncountable really speeds up that process.
Absolutely. It's one of those foundational grammar points that makes a huge difference in clarity and sounding natural. So, whether you're counting your pennies or appreciating the beauty of nature, keep those countable and uncountable nouns in mind.
Great advice, Michael. And thank you all for joining us on this linguistic deep dive. We hope you found it really helpful.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. We'll catch you next time for more language insights in Grammar Unplugged. See you.